Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would go ahead and make another video after my vlog, just done some lives and stuff, and came back and saw someone said in the vlog, hey, why aren't you doing full range of motion, on your curls? Is there a reason you're doing half reps? And I thought it was fascinating, and I went ahead and I took this, and you guys will see in a minute a side-by-side showing the top and the bottom. This is actually full range of motion for the bicep. And it starts to beg the question of, what is it that people think that the biceps do? And I mean, I've seen a lot of noobs at the gym do some crazy stuff with curls. But if you look there, I'm all the way at the bottom. I'm leaning forward so that I can lock out at the bottom without the bar touching my thighs. That's why I have a forward angle. I'm holding at the bottom for the stretch, and then I come up, and if you notice in that screenshot there of this lift, granted it was a little dark this morning. I had the lights on, but it was still dark and storming this morning. But you can see that my arm is all the way up. My forearm's touching the bicep, which, kind of starts to beg the question for people, like, what is it that you think that the biceps do? What is it you think that the biceps do? I mean, the primary job of the bicep is to extend the elbow. And I'm not telling people that we need to have continual tension on a muscle, but I think it's strange that so many bodybuilders out there promote continual tension, and then when someone actually does a curl in a way that creates continual tension, meaning the load isn't removed at all at the top, notice it's at peak contraction. When that happens, and again, if you pause it and look at the still shots like I did with that rep, you'll realize it's actually coming all the way up. Okay, we're coming all the way up. We're working the full range of motion of the bicep. Plus, even then, where does most of the growth happen? Well, most of our growth happens at lengthened positions, so that lockout. But notice I am coming to a complete lockout at the bottom, right? All the way up, all the way down. Now, you will see people do curls with shoulder extension and stuff, bringing it up, but we need to be clear there of what's happening. What other muscles are involved at that point when we start really rotating the shoulder around? We're using parts of the delt, using the trap. And again, I'm not saying that's a wrong way to curl. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that using other muscles reduces the load on the primary mover. I'm not one of those people who says that we need to try to isolate muscles, because even this isn't an isolation. But notice in this case what I'm doing, I'm locking all the way out at the bottom, making sure it stretches, pausing it, coming up, and the reason I can't even really hold it at the top is because it's at peak contraction, because I'm pulling the elbow back a little bit as I curl, right? Curling it back and making sure that the bicep has a lot of load on it right there. So at the very top, my bicep has really maximum load. It is having to take all of the weight at the contraction. And this is stuff that I'm working on, because in my case, we know that I need bigger arms. Yes, I'm a strength athlete, but I'm also working on looking a little bit better. I'm cutting down, which I think is a good thing. But I think this is one of those topics that we have to talk about when we look at muscles and say, are we talking about the potential most range of motion we can get out of an exercise, or are we talking about the range of motion of the muscles involved? Like if you're trying to build certain muscles. And now if you have an exercise as a competitive lift, right, and you need a certain range of motion, by all means, but we're then training a movement pattern. We're not necessarily training a muscle, and we need to understand the difference. And we need to understand that the range of motion of a particular exercise isn't always the potential range of motion of a muscle, isn't the range of motion of a joint. So you've got to look at these things and look at them and say, what is it that I'm counting as a range of motion? In this case, is it saying, hey, what's the farthest I can move a curl? Well, that would be to rotate my shoulders all the way forward, bring the elbows all the way up, and bring it to my chin. But is that working the bicep anymore? Is any of that point higher? If you go any higher than I'm going right here, is the bicep moving the weight? No, the bicep is not moving the weight at all, because the bicep is already contracted. It can't move any further. So you're using shoulder muscles to then bring it higher up, and what happens? You are reducing load on the bicep. Now, is that necessarily going to cause less growth? No. But let's talk about what really shortchanges them is when people don't lock out at the bottom. Okay? That's really shortchanging range of motion. So that, and I think that's important. Make a note that what I'm doing in this case, I'm locking all the way out at the bottom, because I am actually really trying to use these to build biceps, right? I'm trying to work the arm muscles a lot better, trying to get them thicker, because we know that they're not my genetic strong point. So I'm actually focusing on working those muscles and really trying to work those muscles through their functions and range of motion. Okay, so in this case, this isn't even a power curl, this is a pretty strict curl. But note that the strict curl competition doesn't move the bicep to its full range of motion, and that's something I think is fascinating too. If you go look at strict curl competition, you can start with your bicep already partially contracted. As long as it's touching that thigh, they'll let you start with a bent elbow. Well, then we're missing the whole lengthened position. Most of the data on hypertrophy shows that lengthened positions are really the most bang for your buck. So if we're missing lengthened positions on movements, we're really shortchanging muscle growth, right? So in this case, I am trying to work the muscle as hard as I possibly can. I'm not trying to, cheat up the most weight I can, get it up to my face using shoulders or whatever. I'm trying to actually do this curl to just build biceps. That's what I'm trying to do with it. Just like my skull crushers I do in between, I'm trying to build triceps. I'm getting them into that lengthened position, trying to stretch the muscle. So that's what I'm trying to do on these curls. I'm trying to get the muscle into as much stretch as I can, get a pump with it, and take the sets real close to failure, right? And just really, really work the muscle. But understand when we look at these things, don't just look at an exercise and ask, well, what am I doing with that? What's it doing with the muscle? If we're using it for hypertrophy, I'm not talking about when we're trying to use it as a max effort lift. I'm not talking about for 1 rep max testing to lift the most weight, because that is part of what we do here. It's part of what I do on my channel. And I've put up some big deadlifts and things. But I'm not doing these as that form of exercise. I am trying to work the biceps. So in this case, could someone technically move a curl higher? Sure, I could rotate the elbows forward and up and use shoulders to bring the bar to my face. But I'm taking the load off the bicep as I do so. And as at this point, when the bicep is contracted, it has as much load on it as possible. That muscle is at peak contraction with the heaviest tension placed on it there. And then I'm bringing it down and stretching it out at the bottom, under load still. So again, in this case, I am trying to build biceps, and I'm moving the bicep through its full range of motion. Because what does the bicep really do? It bends the arm, bends the elbow, right? It flexes the elbow. So I'm taking the elbow through the longest range of motion that I can, and pretty much taking it to failure and focusing on making sure I get a full stretch at the bottom and briefly hold it in that full stretch so I can try to work the bicep through a long range of motion. So hopefully that clarifies what I'm doing, clears up any misconceptions or anything. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.